I'm Haris, I'm a satirist and leader of an organization that does political education of citizens. You might have heard of it, you might not, but never mind. So basically, which I should have talked about podcast included a lot of data, a lot of research and everything on that end, but I figured, what the hell, I'm not invited as a data scientist or data analyst. So I'm going to tell you my story about the podcasts. I'm an ex-journalist. Unfortunately for some, and fortunately for some, me particularly. So, what I experienced when I watched the TV and the radio programs is formatting. And I figured, what the hell, every interview of every person that I'm interested in is the same, every report is very similar. Why? Because of that formatting. And I was thinking, oh my God, if there would be one show that would not have a time limit or like a program scheme that needs to put commercials in and so on and so on. And yeah, keep it short, then podcast came. I was very happy to do that because I'm not great fan of music or any other entertainment. I just like to listen to people talk, the ones of course that I'm interested in. Now I'll just jump a little bit even more. It should have been like 7 minutes, but I'll try to keep it under 5. I want to say that there are 8 things that I think podcasts have as an advantage over conventional media, which is, 1, there's no time issue. You don't have time, you can speak as much as you want, and that gives you many advantages, such as like guests being more open and relaxed, and as my colleagues will talk to you a little bit more in detail later, it gives much more value to the show. There's no editorial policy of the media, so I don't think that editorial policies are something that are that's something that is bad. I have one on my satirical platform, but I think for the author it gives more freedom and gives more authenticity. It's a complicated word, sorry. There is no presumptions of audience not knowing anything, because in journalism you have to go from the very beginning, because you have to presume that there's zero knowledge with your audience. Podcasts change this, because if you don't know who a person is, you know, screw yourself, Google it. We don't care. So the 4th thing is production of the shows are not as in traditional media. If something is not perfect, it's fine. If something goes wrong, it's fine. Everybody is kind of used to it when it comes to podcasts. Potentially, you can be more financially free because you have less people, and less people is less troubles. Mostly, the podcasts of certain topics have experts in their fields, and it's easier for them to understand the topic better, and in this way as well introduce the topic to the wider audience. 7, for the same reason, pardon me, where people host podcasts and they're experts, they know a lot more people than an average journalist know from the topic they're in. And 8th, and this is the only thing that will refer to a research, by the latest research that was published in US, the most important forte of one podcast is personality of the host, by far. That means it can't be replaced by the artificial intelligence yet. So, thank you, and I want to bring my guests, 4 amazing people from 4 podcasts on druga, strana, Adnan Barucija, Siniša, Pašić from podcast Inkubator, Jelisaveta, Miletic from Njuz podcast, and Nedim Krajišnik from Besjede o obrazovanju podcast. Sorry. Come in. Thank you, people. Where are we? Hello, Jelisaveta. You're the nearest one. Let's start with you. I want to ask you something. It's a very important thing. You started a podcast in Serbia about social issues, about politics, about stuff that are happening in the society. And as majority of us know, Serbia is pretty authoritarian regime at the moment. in a way. But you made it successful even by not having guests almost at all. So what do you think is the key to your success? You're even now, gaining financial independence and everything by talking about very serious and hard topics.
Well, I think that we got so much success because we are the only ones who speak in that kind of way about political topics. There is some idea that young people do not want to hear something about politics, our politicians, corruption, etc. But that is not true. I think that they want that kind of content, but I also think that traditional formats such as news or talk programs on television, it just may be boring to them, and we wanted to make a podcast about main political subjects and to speak about it not as some analytics or some people that know great things, but just like regular people. And because of that, I think that people like to hear about that. Also, I think that we couldn't manage to do all of this if we haven't had support from organizations such as NED or Thompson Foundation, because, as you said, we are not really so hot podcast for the sponsorship because of the political situation in Serbia. But we believe that if we grew as much as we did, that we will gain some sponsors as we did, because we just needed a bit time.
So you took the boring topics and took the boring out of it, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Nedim, please. You are also one of the smaller podcasts, but very, very niche podcast. You are, since I know your background, through all your life, you're fighting for better and more quality education and more equal education in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Why did you choose podcast as a weapon of choice to fight the good fight for better education?
In a manner of what we have prepared over there, that's a great question, Haris. And we should first define what is small podcast. We have big audience, we have 25 nerds around us, and in our opinion, we are big. We just wanted to use our privilege that we have access to the people that our teachers, our professors, and our community of innovative teachers did not have. We had a lot of talks in our office and in non-formal spaces with great minds all over the world about the education and so on. We were just thinking, why shouldn't we this publish? We didn't have intention to become a podcast. We had this same as we didn't have intentions for many other things, but we started as, and we understood it as a video that people can watch, and at the meantime someone told me that it's called podcast. So yeah, we identify ourselves now as a podcasters, but it is at the end just a great privilege to share those beautiful minds with other people using the channels that people use. And it is a little bit hard with our teachers because our major public is age 45-60, so it is really hard to access to them. So we use different channels. We still send these paper notes that something will happen, and majority of our audience is on Wednesday on 7 o'clock there because they think it won't be again.
Yeah, it can't be replayed.
Yes, they cannot replay it again. To summarize it, it is a privilege. We don't have any intentions. We are just genuine in it. We use what we know, we use what we love, and those are brilliant minds that shouldn't kept just for our ears and eyes, and that's the reason we share it.
And tell me, please, how do you think that running a podcast about education impacted your fight for better education in general?
That is really good question, because for our fight, which is really important for Bosnia and Herzegovina, I don't want to bother people with education in Bosnia, but it is crucial for the future of this country, and we understand it in a bit different way than general public do, because we deal with it, we know what happens behind the closed doors, and we are completely scared about it. And what it happens in meantime, which is a beautiful thing, all of our opponents, and let's call them enemies, including educational authorities, are the major public for our podcast. So whatever we say, it's already there in ministries of education. They are talking about it, and they became, after the first season, really afraid of it. They even put some energy to close it, but you cannot close it to YouTube and Facebook. Yes, we can have consequences on other sides, but they are not. And that is the beautiful thing. And you're not even aware of how many people are in need for that kind of articulation of great problems in education. And that's how you raise the number of people who are there on value-based connection, and that is the value-based connection, and we do not mess up with our values when it comes to what do we believe in education, what is the quality of education, and there are no sponsors for this, as Jelisaveta said. There are only good people and only nerds in this society who are now rich nerds and support us on different ways. But the good thing about it is educational authorities are the major public who watch this, and what it happens in later was one of the beautiful things. Now they cannot go out in public on their services that they use and pay, like these national TVs and so on, to say something without our reactions. Mm-hmm. So we kind of made a censorship among educational authorities, what they can say, what they cannot say, because they know on Wednesday that we will talk about it. So that is one of the great, beautiful things which happened.
That's very impactful. Podcast. That's very impactful.
I don't know, is it impactful, but it happens.
It's the beginning of an impact, right?
Hope so.
Thank you, Nedim. Siniša, please, you are running, you're the only, I think, even in the region, the only podcast platform. Like, yes. You literally have 9 podcast hosts, and you produce, we were talking before, around 30 podcasts a month.
Yes, from the beginning, when my partner Marko approached me with the idea of the podcast, he was aware that Croatia is a very small country and it's a very small market. And if we start a podcast with some specific themes that we cover, we knew that we will reach a certain point of audience and then it will stop. So he came to me, he approached me with the idea of creating a podcast platform with multiple podcasters. So we started with 3 podcasters, and every one of them was specific and had his own interests. And we knew that that was the only way that we can reach wider audience in a certain amount of time. So basically from the beginning that was a great idea, because we actually did what we were talking about in the beginning, and now after 6 years and over 1,000 episodes, we have actually 9 podcasters with 5 different types of podcasts. We have this general podcast that we started with. We started at the beginning, we started with only 8 episodes a month.
Only? Okay.
I know it sounds only, but considering that we are doing like 30 or 35 now a month, it seems like a little number to me right now.
Okay.
You know? So basically every year we tried to expand the content, because it was hard at the beginning, because the word podcast was a relatively unknown word, because for 1 year we had to explain every guest. If we invited someone to come to podcast, the first question was, what is podcast? So then we had to explain it's a kind of a TV show, but it's not on TV. It's airing on YouTube. Why on YouTube? So we had lots of this, problems at the beginning to explain to people what the podcast actually is. And after I don't know, maybe 2 years, the people came accustomed to that word. And later on, we came with the idea to create some special podcasts, like football podcast, which is now probably one of the most popular podcasts in Croatia, with that theme about football. We have a podcast about martial arts because lots of our audience likes to watch box and MMA. We have this podcast Mysterium that is kind of like, you know, fringe science themes, and we have this year we started with the gaming podcast. So we are trying to make a platform for every podcaster that likes certain topics and to present themselves with their guests, so that the audience can find on our channel everything for themselves.
But just tell me one thing. How does your process of scheduling stuff looks like? Because I know you have more or less one studio.
Yes.
And producers are pretty similar people. How do you schedule stuff? Like, do you use any special tools or whatever? Like, that's a whole lot of content that you put out.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's hard, but if you are well organized, it can be done because...
thank you for that answer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Come on.
The key is organization.
Come on, I'm expecting a little bit more.
Yes,
Come on.
This is how we do it. So we are planning, if we have 30 episodes, so we need to have at least 30 guests, because in some of our podcasts we have like 2 or 3 guests. So basically 1 month ahead we are planning the guest list. So right now we are planning the guests for the summer. And then we have a little meeting, then we decide, okay, we want this, and this person, then we get their contacts, phone numbers, and then we start calling, you know. And then when they are when they tell us when they are available, we have this list and with the dates, and we are trying to schedule them when they can come to our studio. And sometimes it goes pretty smooth. Sometimes you have problems with cancellation and everything, but in the end somehow it happens. We do it, you know.
Yeah, so, you manage.
But it's a process that lasts every day for almost all day. You know, from the morning till the evening. We are always on WhatsApp groups, on the telephone and everything, trying to schedule.
So you don't have any special tool?
No, there's no special tool except telephone, and
maybe
keep
Google
calling,
some
keep
tools
calling
for scheduling,
until you finish the list with all the names.
Or some AI, maybe, huh?
No, we still didn't request help from AI, but I hope it will be soon, and they will help us. At least with the tables, you know.
Thank you, Siniša. Adnan, you are basically running a podcast that is biography podcast, targeting the successful. Some famous and some less famous people in their fields, and you present their background story or actually origin story from where they came to where they reached. So I want to ask you, when you prepare yourself with the guest, you know, of course, guests always come earlier, like you were for 2 days already here, you know. So when you talk for a coffee and then you get inside the studio, is there any times that you have stories that they told you but they won't tell it to the audience, and do you ever feel regret about it, and how do you handle that?
Yeah. Well, I in the beginning I was doing that a lot, like preparing my guests to talk about their life or something. But it's shown that it's a mistake. Usually they come to the studio and they talk about something. They told that they didn't tell me that already. You know, they forgot about it. I had that moments, but they already tell me that I want to talk about this on podcast. So it's some kind of psychology podcast. So. I don't know. I'm trying to find a lot of things about them and don't tell them about it. So when are we doing podcast, I'm trying to ask them all about it. But when they are surprised about it, it's better. So when I say I will ask you that, most of times it's a mistake. Of course, sometimes guests are saying like, can you please delete this? And of course, because this is not political podcast or something like that, they agreed and came and everything. Sometimes we do that for them, but because it's about their life. So yeah, we do that.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying, you're manipulating your guests into telling you more of the story. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
that's interview, that's podcast.
Yeah.
We are kidding, but most of the time, if the guests are not famous people, and that's their first or second media experience, they are scared or they don't know what to say. I have a lot of guests that are for the first time in media. I'm trying to find that niche that they will be like true, to tell the truth. Yeah. Of course, we are all doing that, and sometimes you succeed, sometimes you not.
I want to ask you another question, because there's a saying that there's a lot of lies in the biographies of famous people.
Yeah.
But then there's a saying that it would be much more lies in the biographies of the people who weren't famous, right? Do you ever feel your guest, I will not ask the name right now, I will ask you later, of course, but do you ever feel that your guest is, giving you some not so true story, or trying to make it look beautiful or more nice, or to make themselves look better?
I think most of the guests do that. Like, I'm better than this, and but I had a couple of guests, and they are even famous. Doesn't matter who is that. That are in the middle of podcast, in the middle of interview, I just thought what I'm doing, because I'm trying to represent that person. It's good, it's successful, trying to tell their stories, and maybe they're lying everything. Like, I had a couple of moments like that. Who, I don't know, is that true? Nobody knows. And we are broadcasting that story to the young people, which are our goal. Like, I had a couple of that moments, but the learning curve for that is to better prepare before that. So maybe if I'm not, if I don't know, I will change the subject or something.
Thank you, Adnan. Jelisaveta, I have one question. You have a podcast where there's very interesting one. You are a podcast almost without guests. Like, very rarely you have someone there, and you're only 4 people in the room. Are you afraid that you're gonna become boring to your audience, that they will get bored of 4 of you, or like, just be, I can't watch these 4 anymore?
Well, maybe if we lived in another country, but since we are living in Serbia, we have very interesting topics every week. So that's the core of our podcast. And I think that we are doing this for such a long time, and we know each other so well. So in one point, I just need to look at Marco or Nenad or Victor to feel if I need to step in or step back or say something funny, and then, the energy is good. So I don't have that kind of fear. The biggest fear is when the Vucic goes down, then what we will speak about after that. So, but let's wait for that.
Okay, but do you plan to get some more guests in, or?
Well, we created a new kind of podcast a few months ago. It's called POPkast. It's about culture, series, films, and stuff like that, music. And we have guests there, because every 2 weeks we bring something new that we watched, listen, and stuff like that. And that is the part where some other people besides us can come in and tell something about that. But in terms of this news podcast, I don't think, maybe we don't exclude that as an option. We think we know everything about everything. No,
so we
no, stuff like
kidding.
that. Okay, no, we have some people in we could call him or her, but we just didn't have the opportunity, because every week we have like such a dynamic.
It's a hectic environment.
Environment. Yes.
Thank you. Siniša, please. You also had a lot of celebrities, a lot of rich people, whatever. Did you have, like, because you're a producer, it interests me from the, behind the scenes. Did you ever have some weird requests or weird behavior of people in the podcast, or they want something or they don't want something?
Except for having them drunk. Nothing weird.
Okay.
No, we never had any kind of weird requests from the guests, whether they are celebrities or non-famous person, because mostly they know what they can now expect when they come. At the beginning, most of our guests were not so famous, because the point of the podcast Inkubator was to bring some interesting stories for people to hear. We are not, we don't have those hard topics like Newsnet with the politics and presidents and political issues and everything. We wanted to bring to our audience some entertainment, to forget about all of that they are watching at the television and everything. So our guests were common people with no
uncommon stories,
with uncommon interesting stories and inspiring stories, because the most popular podcasts or episodes on our channels were stories from people who weren't famous, because when you have somebody who can tell some story that can inspire other people, and we had a lot of that, because we got lots of mails and messages after some of the guests came to our podcast that this is a great story, I want to do something like this, especially when you invite people who dare to push their limits, so. But to come back to your great question, we had no special request or some weird request like, I don't know, 1 kilo of bananas or something like that.
Yeah, that's great. Nedim, I've seen your studio getting dissolved. I was disturbed by that. Are you planning to quit the podcast, or are you planning to change it in the future?
That's a good question. That's a beautiful question. Thank you.
Beautiful question.
Thank you for
amazing.
that.
More beautiful than mine.
Yeah, it's the best questions you have for me.
Ever.
Yes, we dissolve it as a marketing trick. We hit on emotions of our viewers, of supporters, and after we dissolved the studio, over 120,000 euros came on our Patreon account. So of course we're gonna rebuild new one, but that was good marketing trick.
Do you need a new host? It's only two of you?
No, thank you very much. We need to pay our debts first, then we will move on. Yes, we will have a new studio, but we have it as a common space for the teachers and students of pedagogy, teaching faculties, where we will have these open talks with our guests. We want to try out this new model of our podcast, and that is to have an audience over there on the spot. So we will record our guests together with the audience, together with other teachers, students, so they can ask questions also, because there are many of them who wants to ask something. All of these talks after the podcast are sometimes even better than during the podcast. So we are eager to see what's going to happen.
Press recording when you're talking after that. Nobody's
But that was a beautiful marketing trick, and we did it. Yeah, people were sad because of that.
I'm glad you can return your debts like this. So thank you, people. Please give round of applause for my guests. We have 2 minutes left, and I would like if somebody from the audience would ask something. Yes, I can see a lady here because my lights are in my head.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice. Okay. Hi there. You were going to say something about the questions. Were you going to instruct us on what to ask?
No, only ask whatever you and whoever you want.
Perfect. Well, I had a question, or more like a discussion point, and that would be for Jelisaveta. Jelisaveta, I listened to the Newsnet podcast mostly because of you. I think otherwise I would be bored. And I think that's kind of like, it's nothing to say about your colleagues, but probably more about like representation and stuff. So my question is along those lines. So basically, you are the only woman in the podcast. You are the only woman on the panel here tonight. So I was wondering, A, is that generally the case in the news of podcast and humor, I guess, as well in the Balkans? And B, how does that affect you, if so, in terms of like what you say and how you say it? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a huge day for all women in all around the world for me to be sitting here and speak about the podcast and trying to be funny. Woo! It's a small step, but okay. I don't know why stuff like that, but I think this is a way to change things. And we are inviting other women in our podcast. We started with Njuz POPkast. We called Bojana Vunturišević. So she was our guest a few weeks ago, and we plan to do that kind of stuff in the future as well. Meaning of this, I don't...
Very brave.
Brave. I'm sorry. What was the other question? I forgot.
Basically, how does that affect you in terms of what you say and how you say it? Like, do you find yourself choosing different topics than what maybe you would have done otherwise?
Well, I don't think that that is a stereotype that women do not talk about the politics. We do. Yeah?
I didn't mean public, like not talking about.
We speak.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Basically, just to clarify, in any way, basically, that.
Well, I don't know. I don't feel any kind of way. I'm really just delighted to be here and in the podcast and try to do the best way I can, not as a woman, as a person, but basically, okay, I am a woman.
As a female person.
As a female person, I feel wonderful.
Thank you, Jelisaveta. Thank you, Adnan. Thank you, Nedim. And thank you, Siniša. We are done.